Hello, I'm Sporty Jeralds, and man, I am here chopping it up with Buck. Today is an awesome day.
I'm Charles Arbuckle, chopping it up with Buck. We are here at the Ballantyne Country Club. You can see we're living in the high cotton today, and I've got my man Sporty Jeralds with me today. Sporty, how you doing?
Oh, life is fantastic, man. It is a great day. What could be any better than living in the Carolinas?
Oh, I know. 70 plus degrees, golf weather. We're at the country club, getting a chance to talk to you and just spend some time. You know, when I first started looking at your history, and we bumped into each other in this town so many times, but haven't had a chance to sit down.
Yes.
You grew up in Fayetteville. Your dad named you Sporty. Adonis Jeralds is your name, but how did that name come up, and how it served you well over the course of your career?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And first of all, thank you guys for having me. My man Kevin Tolbert. I admire what Kevin has done with this company. I love entrepreneurs, man. I don't have the courage to be an entrepreneur, but I love people who have that courage and want to go out and just make it happen and fuel their passion, for what they love to do and then turn it into a business. And so I'm so thankful to be here today. But yeah, my dad nicknamed me Sporty from day one. He had a coach, a famous coach. A lot of people might remember his name. Leroy Walker was the track coach at North Carolina Central University, where my father went to school. He played football there, and Coach Walker was one of his coaches, but his nickname was Sporty Walker. So he nicknamed me after his coach, and he nicknamed me that from day one. And obviously, when your dad nicknames you Sporty, you have an affinity for sports, and you move towards sports. So my life is sort of revolved around sports, and I'm thankful for that.
Now, I know you were a great basketball player in your day, but what else did you play growing up? Were there other things that you liked besides basketball?
Absolutely. That was, in our day, you had an opportunity. You didn't really specialize like young people do today. We got 10-year-olds who have a trainer who are like, I'm focused on basketball, and that's all I want to do. Yeah. With us, we just went from one sport to the other. So interestingly enough, I played football. I was a pretty good quarterback in high school football. Got recruited by some ACC schools for football, but I just loved the game of basketball, and I was a tennis player as well. I played tennis all throughout high school, only lost 2 matches in my high school career in tennis. So I played a couple of years.
Tennis is a great sport for dexterity and movement, hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, but like we said, and I'm a tall guy, so it's hard to get the ball by me, around me, over my, lob.
I tried to get my daughter to do it, and she's long, she's about 5'10", and the lady was like, let me train her. And she was talking about being young, but she liked it, but she didn't love it.
Yeah, you gotta love it. And we know it's bad on the knees. In retrospect, between basketball, the up and down, and tennis, that asphalt is long term. It's not something, because we didn't have clay courts.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have the soft courts. We were on asphalt.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, when you got to Guilford, but even going to high school, who was the guy besides your father or somebody in your family that really gave you the understanding that, hey, you have a chance to be really, really good?
I had a coach, my high school coach, and I had some great players that played with me. And I saw some of those older guys that played high school basketball in front of me, but I was kind of in Fayetteville, we were kind of on an island. Yeah. We beat up on each other, but it was all the schools in Fayetteville. And interestingly enough, a name you might know, a guy named Robert Brickey.
I remember
Brickey
that name.
went to Duke. Duke was Brickey was kind of the first guy from Fayetteville. He went to my high school to sort of break out of that Fayetteville island, as I kind of
It's funny you say that, Sporty, because when I moved here, people would talk about Fayetteville. And the first time I drove, I'm like, man, and this is even more recently, 18 years ago. Yeah. But then when I started going, you're right, it seemed like a lot of people had still kind of stayed there, but then people started to branch out and get away from Fayetteville and move on. And E.E. Smith has always been a good football school, basketball school. You guys have had a lot of talent.
Because there's about 10 high schools in that Fayetteville area. So when you play against each other, only one school kind of comes out. At the end. And I often joke with Bricky, we're still good friends. I say, well, they let you wear my number before they retired it.
That's funny.
We had the same number in high school, so
Yeah.
that's kind of a little running joke we have. Yeah.
So you went to Guilford, you're one of the premier guys there in Guilford College. Tell us a little bit about that, your career.
That was a really great experience for me because it was a small school. We had about 930 students, I think, at Guilford at the time. We played in the NAIA when I was at Guilford. They've sort of transitioned over to the Division III now, but real strong competition against the Elons and the Catawbas, Pfeiffers of the world. The thing with us is we just really didn't have those 6'9", 6'10" guys.
Gotcha.
Top to bottom, from 6'2", and that's the thing. When you look at a picture of our team, it's 6'2", 6'3". The guards are 6'2", the forwards are 6'3", and the center 6'5", maybe. If you're lucky. Because a guy 6'9", he ain't coming to Guilford because he can go play at an ACC or go sit at the bench at ACC school at least. But great competition, academically a really, really good school, which had me with a really good foundation in terms of my academics. And so it was a great experience for me. I got to play all 4 years. I often tell young people, are you going to be better in 4 years if you go to a small school like Guilford and you play all 4 years versus maybe going to an ACC school and you don't play but that last year? And by the time you get to that last year, now they brought in another 5-star or 4-star guy. You're like, I was on an ACC school team, but I didn't get to play.
It's funny you bring that up, Sporty, because it's about 4 versus 40, right? And I always tell young guys too, pick a place that's going to impact you for the 40 years of your life and not just the 4.
Man,
and I think I heard that before in some way, shape, or form, and then I just started thinking about it when I was getting recruited. Message. I had that mindset, and then as I've aged out, going to UCLA was kind of the same for me. A school with Jackie Robinson and Kenny Washington and on the forefront of, social justice that we all see. I didn't realize it when I got there, but as I got to school and see the names and walk, Arthur Ashe and some of the other people, to your point, if you can go somewhere where it's going to make a difference for you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Guilford did that. You also got to UNC. You're talking about your grades.
Yeah.
That would probably be a place where I have to talk to you about. I mean, everybody here in North Carolina loves North Carolina or Duke, right? And NC State also. I got to give them. But when you went to school there, what was that like for you graduate-wise? Because you went there first and then the University of Massachusetts.
Yeah, so, that was, first of all, it was sort of a culture shock because you're going from a school with 900 students to 25,000 essentially at that time.
Yeah.
So, and but it was grad school, so you're in, I love academics because they have these terms. Your cohort is what they would call it. So it's just your group really of your sort of people that come into that graduate program with you, which was only about 25 of us. Okay. So you're a little bit removed from the undergrad population, and you're really focused on trying to get that graduate degree. So you can't really party and do some of those other things. But interestingly enough, that was the year Carolina won the national championship, and the year Michael MJ hit that shot.
Oh, wow.
So it was great to be a part of that. But, the professor's like, no, we got class tomorrow. Like, everybody's out on Franklin Street tonight, and we got class tomorrow. But it was a great school. I was in the public administration program. Okay. I majored in criminal justice at Guilford. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to carry a gun. So I didn't want to do something like some of my classmates who went on to become sheriff's deputies and police officers. I said, well, if I want to stay in this field, maybe I can get a degree in public administration. And in my mind, I would be at maybe some of those higher levels of, maybe the state director of parole or probation or something like that.
My dad was a parole officer, by the way. My son is going back to get his master's in public policy, so at Penn. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Also, but I had a work study job over at the county manager's office in Raleigh, North Carolina, Charles, and I was just totally out of my element, man. It was not something that I enjoyed, and so that's when I kind of fell back on my love for sports and went to the University of Massachusetts for a Master's of Sports Management. And so that's how I really ended up in venue management, my career, because I got to UMass and they had a master's in sports management, but they had 3 different concentrations. One in high school and college sports, one in professional sports, and the other was in venue management.
Yeah.
And the only way that I could...
even think, I mean, it's amazing. When I read your bio, I'm like, who thinks of that? And then who goes out and do it when this town gets to, it's just perfect storm.
Well, yeah, I've been very fortunate in my life. I hate to say lucky, I say blessed. Yeah, I don't say lucky anymore. But that was one, when I looked at it, I'm like, well, which one of these 3 can I major in or have a concentration in that will allow me to tap back into that public administration degree? And because most of these venues around the country were publicly owned and operated, venue management seemed to be the natural thing, and so that's how I was able to go into that, and it worked out famously for me.
Taking you back though, after you finished college basketball, did you have a chance to go overseas or play in the NBA, or what was that like for you before you decided to take that next step?
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
Probably could have, got some interest from. Overseas, European League, probably could have gone and played over in Europe. But in my mind, I'm like, if I'm not going to make it to the league, I need to go ahead and get on with my life. And European basketball was not as prevalent as it is today. There's so many opportunities for guys to go play, overseas these days that weren't really available. So there were only a few. And I just didn't have a comfort level going out of the country to play basketball, or being disconnected from my family and friends for several months and not possibly knowing the language, So probably was the best decision just to go ahead and get those master's degrees and go ahead and start my career.
Well, what was interesting at your time at North Carolina, did you spend any time doing any other things around venue management, or you just really stayed in your lane in public administration?
Stayed in my lane in public administration. Just tried to learn as much as I could in those classes. Yeah.
Did you? Well, we all know Michael Jordan was there, but there were a lot of other guys there. Fred Whitfield was there. I know you guys were y'all all in the same circle then, or was that after?
That was after.
Okay.
That was after. Yeah.
Well, so the interesting thing you bring up about that venue management, what was the first opportunity you got? And you kind of could see, you were seeing it when you went to school, which was great. And I always tell people, when was that pivot point for you where you saw it and like, that's it right there?
Absolutely. Thanks again for asking that question. So with the master's in sport management from UMass, you had to do a 3-month internship to complete that master's degree. Now it's more rigorous now than it was, but that was the advent. That was sort of the first sports management degree programs in the country, UMass and Ohio University. So I'm there maybe a year or 2 after they actually even have a master's in sports management.
Okay.
So I said, all right, I got to do this 3-month internship. My father and the gentleman who was the assistant city manager of Hampton, Virginia, were roommates at North Carolina Central University. And my dad told him, he said, hey, Sporty needs an internship. Assistant city managers have several departments under them. They'll normally have 2 or 3 assistant city managers, and you have police and fire and public works.
That's not where you wanted to be. You knew where you wanted to be.
But the Coliseum was under him.
Oh, wow.
So he called essentially the gentleman that worked for him and said, hey, I got my former roommate's son needs an internship. It's only 3 months. Can you take him and let him complete his degree? And I got out there, man, and I learned more in 3 days of being actually in the Hampton Coliseum than I learned in 3 months of taking the venue management class at the University of Massachusetts. But to answer your question, that was the spark. I finished those 3 months, and I just hit it off famously with the gentleman who was the manager of the building. He was an older white gentleman, and I was a young black kid. But man, we just hit it off. And his name was Mr. Greenwell, and I said, Mr. Greenwell, is there any way I can keep working here at this building? Man, I found what I think is my passion. I love this energy that's created by these events and the variety of events that we have here. And so actually, the guy who was the assistant manager of the building had just taken the job as the manager of the Pontiac Silverdome. where the Detroit Lions played. So his position as assistant manager was open. And it was right, it was like in May. So those buildings, arenas typically aren't really busy during those summer months, because that's when the concerts go outside and that's when the sports teams are kind of in a lull. If you have a basketball team or hockey team, it's their off season. And so he actually created a job for me, because the personnel people in Hampton said, hey, he doesn't have any experience. He ain't ever done nothing but be a lifeguard, and during the summers he can't.
Well, you were playing basketball, so you could, I mean, it was hard to,
So he put a little play on words. He created a job, and it was the assistant to the director instead of the assistant directors. So he just kind of froze the assistant director's position, made me the assistant to the director. After 2 years of doing that, he promoted me to the assistant director. Although I was doing the assistant director the whole time. But it worked out good. And then, of course, Charlotte became available. Me and him, we had a deal. I was going to just stay there with him forever. And when he retired, I would become the manager of the Hampton Coliseum. But the opportunity came up when the Hornets came to town. Steve Camp recruited me, and I never will forget, he brought me down for an interview and he said, hey, we need North Carolina people running North Carolina buildings. I played basketball. The stars just aligned. This is the NBA, new team, 23,000 seat, largest Coliseum in the country. It was just good.
Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with Sporty Jeralds.
At Heslop Wealth Advisors, our goal is to help small businesses develop quality retirement plans for their employees through our Lunch and Learn seminars. We provide lunch and learning tools to help your company succeed and unmatched customer service.
Hey, we are back at Chopping It Up with Buck at the Ballantyne Country Club. I told you, we're living in high cotton this week and doing a nice job here with Sporty Jeralds. Thanks for Kevin Tolbert and Randy Joyner.
Yes.
Randy's the guy here that's gotten us an opportunity, and glad to be able to sit in front of you and talk to you. We started this during Zoom. During COVID. And we were Zooming people, calling people, and getting in touch with folks. I was sitting in the backyard one day smoking meat, and I said, Kevin, I think we can do this, because Kevin and I were over at ESPN at the same time.
Right.
I got let go, he got let go, and we were just trying to figure out a way to kind of keep those creative juices going. So you were telling us a little bit about coming to Charlotte. But before we go there, I do want to ask you, the Dallas Cowboy scout that came to Guilford College. Tell me that story, because I heard this.
The story grows over the years. It might be a little embellished by the time that we get.
Well, let's blow it all the way.
Yeah, so, the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of the old timers would remember that name. Who was it? Branch Rickey, maybe?
Gil Brandt.
Gil Brandt. Gil Brandt was the general manager or president, one of those.
Yeah.
But he had he had some thoughts that basketball players might make good NFL players. And of course, I had played football in high school, and so they sent a scout to Guilford's campus, and me and one of my teammates, a guy named Greg Sims, get this, what you would call a mini tryout. And as I remember it, right, we sit down, first of all, we do like a 250 question written test.
The one, basically their version of the Wonderlic, or maybe the Cowboys version of it.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
I think I might have done a little bit better on the written test than Greg did. Then we go outside and we do what, the guys do in the combine now, not to that extent, but just those kind of shuttle drills, kind of testing your agility. Greg did better on that than I did. Last thing we do is run a 40-yard dash. Yeah. Greg ran a 4.5. I ran a 4.6 and some change. Okay. Greg got an invitation to the Cowboys training camp, and I got a nice Dallas Cowboy ink pen. So.
Well, it's funny. The Cowboys were, and most teams, if you even think about the Raiders, they would go outside and get track and field. They get back, and a lot of HBCU guys that came through the Cowboys program. And then when I got drafted by the Saints, Jim Finks was one of those holdovers who recruited a lot of kids from the MEAC and the SWAC.
Yes.
And you know, I just, it's interesting when you think about it. They would go, recruiting in high school for college has become more of a 5-star, 4-star system as opposed to going see you play and understand what you can do really well.
And it's it's so much of an objective opinion because, and this is no disrespect, but is a 5-star from South Dakota playing basketball better than a 3-star playing in the public schools here in Charlotte?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Probably not. You know what I mean? So it's all subjective. It's a lot of times it's a beauty contest. You know what I mean? So but the footnote is Greg didn't last but like 3 days out there, so he probably got a nice ink pen on the way out too. You know?
Well, I tell people all the time, basketball is the reason why I think I got to the NFL.
Yeah.
Because of the ability to use my body, understand how to attack
Leverage,
the basketball, leverage, just all those things. You know, then learning the block, that wasn't easy, but it was easier than others because you knew how to move people's body.
Right.
But I wanted to catch the ball. Get the ball out there. So tell us, when you got to Charlotte, how did that all come together? This is the days before Charlotte became this big booming metropolis that we see now, before all of that. How did you know they were getting the arena or the Coliseum, and how did that all come together?
Yeah, and so, as the story goes, by the time I got here, we were almost open. The Coliseum was almost open. But you have to remember that the team was awarded to Mr. Shin about midway through the construction process. So there actually was some retrofitting done of the building. There were no suites whatsoever in the Coliseum as it was originally designed. So once the team gets awarded to Charlotte, they had to go back in and they put 12 skyboxes, suites into the building. But the great thing we had going for us was we had 23,500 seats. So we're the largest building, really, that venue was the largest Coliseum ever constructed. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because once you get to a certain size, you can't even do a roof big enough to accommodate that many seats. So that's why you almost have to go to a dome once you get over 24, 25,000
That's
seats.
why they can't really hold the Final Four, or they don't anymore. In arenas, they go to domes.
Exactly. And so, it was just a thing. I talk about the CH factor. When I'm teaching, I talk about that. If you remember, we have Charlotte on our jerseys. When you see an old picture of Dale or Muggsy, Charlotte is on the jersey, and that was one of the things that we did. That the team, we had the team put Charlotte on the jerseys in exchange for us just charging them $1 a game to rent the building.
Wow.
And we call it that CH factor because before then, if you say, hey, I'm from Charlotte, they say, oh yeah, that's up where the University of Virginia's at. No, that's Charlottesville. Oh, Charlotte, yeah, that's down on the coast. No, that's Charleston, South Carolina, or Charleston, West Virginia. So we were really trying to overcome that CH factor, and having Charlotte plastered instead of Knicks or Lakers, we wanted the city of Charlotte on that building. Of course, it was just the place to be. Everybody wanted to be in the Coliseum. Win, lose, or draw, you wanted to be at the water cooler the next day saying you were at the game last night. And so we led the league in attendance like 8 straight years, 10 straight years, something like that.
Y'all had it was some great times.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about the people that came through here and, the players and all that. What are some of your best memories from the Coliseum and, the Hornets? And,
just being there in that atmosphere. Luckily, because of my job, being the manager of the building, I could pretty much be where I wanted to be in the building. And so
you didn't have the all access. You were just, I am the access.
They knew me, and so I would literally stand in the tunnel, where the players would run out, when you played the game, you really like being that close, because then you can say like, man, these cats, I thought I was pretty good. And people would see me, Charles, like, oh man, I would have thought you would have made it to the NBA. My Guilford classmates, like, man, you really don't know how good these cats are, and how big and physically imposing they are. But probably one of the highlights, when Alonzo made that shot when we knocked Kevin McHale and those guys. That was kind of their last game. When we won that playoff series, I was right down there in the tunnel. if you find the right footage, you might actually be able to see me on the court. Of course, you know, Dale and those guys, they storm the court, and Alonzo's laying back on the court, and he's getting mobbed. But there's some pictures I've seen of me actually physically on the court, because, you know, I'm the manager of the building. So that's definitely one of the highlights.
That's pretty cool. You bring up a really good point about being on the floor. You know, I thought, hey, I could be 6'3", 6'4", be, you know, Charles Barkley or Larry Johnson growing up. The first time I went to a Laker game, I was getting recruited by an agent. So, you know, I'm finishing school and I'm getting ready to go in the league, and I'm on the floor. And this is the Showtime Lakers, and them cats were moving. I'm like, I could have played. Oh, yeah.
It's torture, man. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, I love my game of football, but when you get on an NBA court and you see them actually playing, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother level. You talk about Muggsy, you talk about, you know, Larry Johnson, you talk about all these names. What was it like, and Dale, but I'm always interested to hear the stories about Steph coming around as a little kid. He probably was, and they say he has been able to do some of the things that we see now. I know some people that are related to them, and it's just been amazing to see his success transferred from that time he was a little bitty boy.
Yeah, just definitely, you know, and I tell people this, I don't know how many people believe me, but, you know, we used to chase them cats off the court because their dad played for the Hornets, and after the games, they out there shooting, him and Seth out there shooting after the game, you know, and you don't see it. You know, even watching Steph, you know, when he was playing high school basketball, he's just such a, I hate to say frail guy, but just didn't have that imposing body. You know what I mean? It's like, just, this guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, and just to say I know him, if he walked in here, he would say, "Hi, Sporty." You know, so that's, and just great people. You know, love his dad. I was on Dale's. We had a board of directors for his nonprofit he started originally. I was one of the original board members for that nonprofit, the Dale Curry Foundation, which transitioned to Athletes United for Youth. But yeah, just love those guys.
You know, the other thing too, the tragedy of Bobby Fields. You know, I got to see his kids and get to know them a little bit. I mean, it was so many things that just, I mean, I guess that impacted not only the city, but this team and just all the people around when that happened.
Yeah, definitely a dark moment in our history, and just, you know, I hate it. David Wesley is the survivor of that. David still works. I see him. I think he's still one of the announcers for New Orleans.
That's
maybe.
right. That's right.
Yeah, see him, but just, that was tough. That was tough, and it happened, you know, basically right outside the Coliseum, you know, right on Tyvola Road, within literally less than a mile from the building. And see his wife Kendall, and you know, over the years, see her around.
So, you know, a guy like Alonzo Mourning, kind of stoic guy. What was he like behind the scenes? Because it's always interesting to see a guy on the court. I mean, you could tell he was an intimidator and enforcer. And I love that team because they had a bunch of those guys that were tough.
Yeah.
You know, football kind of guys that I like to call them. What was Zoe like?
You know, from my interactions with Zoe, still sort of that stoic, you know, really serious kind of guy. Not a lot of nonsense. You know, Larry.
My grandmama.
Dallas,
Texas, right outside of Dallas, Texas. So.
Great story with Larry because, you know, sort of like Larry had signed a deal with the Atrium, what is now Atrium, like Carolina's Medical Center, to do a ad for their magazine, right? And so you guys know in this business, we can't tie Larry Johnson up for 7 or 8 hours while we get the lighting and everything, right? So Sporty gets to be Larry, you know, for the day. And so I'm the lighting dummy, so I'm sitting there, but I got Larry's uniform on, man. And that was my opportunity to be in the NBA for a day. And, you know, and Larry come in, you know, I've been sitting there for 5 hours. He come in for 17 minutes, snap, stab, and he gone. But that was a good day for me.
That's great stuff.
But he's a great guy too. Larry's just a fun-loving guy, as we all remember him. You know, didn't take himself too serious. You know, but
it's great memories to think about that Hornets team and how the Coliseum came together. How did you feel when you found out about it being demolished or getting ready to be demolished? What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was my baby, man.
Yeah,
I grew up there, not only professionally, but I was there from day one, essentially. From the day we opened, I helped close it down on the last event. We got some of my staff together. The Renaissance Hotel invited us up to watch the demolition. We had like a room on the 6th floor, and we were able to actually watch the building come down. And I tell young people it's a good lesson because that building served our community in the greater state and the region for about 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And with the way they set that dynamite up, that building came down in about 18 seconds.
Wow.
And I use that as a metaphor for life in terms of you can build up a lot in your career and do a lot of good work, but sending the wrong email, hitting the wrong button on the email, or telling a joke that isn't appropriate, or making a bad decision maybe with your friends can ruin you for life, and it can all come down. And so seeing that building just implode, an implosion is it comes down into itself, an explosion is it goes up, and out. But to see that implosion, I say, hey, if you ain't David Copperfield, you need to find you someplace else to work. So that's why I end up transitioning over, working with the Bobcats some, and end up teaching now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, tell us a little bit about the transition to the Bobcats, but in particular the teaching. You're an author, you've had a great career. Basically, anybody in venue management probably still comes to you. I'd say you're a lifetime consultant because you've done it from the ground floor. You watch it go up and come down. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's been really good. I went to work for the Bobcats for about 3 years, and I knew that was kind of a finite time period that I would be with the Bobcats and helping them out. I was kind of helping them. I was sort of a bridge between the Coliseum. Mainly what I did at the Coliseum, even though I was a GM, was I did most of the booking of the events. And then I would turn it over to some amazing people that worked with me with operations and ticketing and marketing. And so I was known by agents and promoters like, hey, if you want to book the Charlotte Coliseum, call Sporty Jeralds.
Okay.
So when the new, what was then the Bobcats Arena opened up, they said, hey, let Sporty be sort of the liaison between the old and the new. So that was my role with the Bobcats. And fortunately enough, Fred Whitfield, some of those guys saw, Ed Tapscott, those guys that were with that early part of it, knew that I had a lot of contacts in the community, and they started a Tickets for Kids program. Yeah. And so as I was sort of transitioning away from full-time, they said, hey, Sporty, would you be willing to work and try to give away some tickets to those underserved communities, underprivileged kids that might not have an opportunity to come to one of our games. And so that's what I do now, transition over to an independent contractor. I still help the team out in that area. But I do teach full-time down at the University of South Carolina, and that's what I'm excited about. I get to train the next generation of venue managers along with a lot of other students who are in sport management.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back because I really want to hear about your teaching and some of the things. This is awesome. We'll be right back on Chopping It Up with Buck.
At Heslop Wealth Advisors, our goal is to help small businesses develop quality retirement plans for their employees through our Lunch and Learn seminars. We provide lunch and learning tools to help your company succeed and unmatched customer service.
We're back with Sporty Jeralds at the Ballantyne Country Club. Again, thanks to Randy Joyner and the folks here. We have a great location, good guests. It's always good to spend time with you. You were telling us about the teaching part, but my interest right away went to being an author. I've got folks that have always told me, and I've heard, there's always one book in a person. You've got 4. So before you became a professor, what gave you the impetus to want to write a book or write multiple books?
Yeah, well, and just wanting to give back, particularly to young people. And I've written my books. If you read my book, I've had as young as a fourth grader read my book and understand it. And I've had a gentleman 63 years old say, hey man, I read your book and I got something out of it. So I really tried to write it from a very simplistic point of view, Charles. I look at myself as a simple guy, and so I have a template sort of that I use. I try to draw the reader in with a kind of an analogy or a story. One of my favorites is, I spell my last name with a J and not a G. And so I tell young people, I say, hey, if you spell the guy who's hiring you's name wrong on the letter to him, that might be the thing that gets you kicked out of the process.
Yeah.
So go to the extra effort. Even a name as common as John Smith. John might be Jon. Smith might be with a Y instead of an I. So you give yourself an advantage for everybody, because everybody's going to spell it John Smith, right? So if you show that you went that extra mile and actually found out how John Smith spells his name, then maybe you get that job, and so.
What made you become an avid writer and reader? Because embrace change, follow the bouncing ball, the champion in you, let your light shine, from the locker room to the classroom. I'm intrigued by this because my mom made me as a young child start reading. We always had that list in the summer to read. That was like 5 books. My mother would have me reading 15, 20 books in the summer. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I understand it now. But what for you was the reason you wrote and then wanted to become a professor?
Readers are leaders. There's a saying that the only difference between you and the person you are now and the person you are 5 years from now will be the people you meet and the books you read.
Okay.
And if you look at people who are highly successful, a lot of them are voracious readers. I mean, they deep into reading, and so I just wanted to give back. That's all I really wanted to do, man, was give back. My dad was an awesome guy. I talked a little bit about him. Yeah. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad has the football stadium in Fayetteville, at the Fayetteville State University. It's named after my dad.
Oh. Wow.
There's a middle school in Fayetteville, North Carolina, named after my dad. So when he passed away, people are like, man, you got some big shoes to fill. I'm like, man, I wear 13, and he wore 13, but he got a bigger 13 than me. This cat got 2 buildings named after him.
He was wearing a 15 or 16.
Yeah. But it really challenged me to because so many people, you don't realize the greatness of your parents. That's dad. You don't realize everything they're doing. And then people come up, man, your dad made a difference in my life, or he got me a job. And so that's what happened. I just wanted to kind of pour back into people like I know that he had done. And so that's the books and the mentoring. I love mentoring. I probably got about 30 to 40 people out there that I have an active mentoring relationship with. And so the books are just an extension of that. What can I give that if I'm not there every day, if you read this, maybe that'll give you that little dose of inspiration that you need to get to that next level.
I like that. Readers are leaders. But you're doing a great job at South Carolina as a instructor, because I've read some of the reviews on you. Very tough, but fair. A guy that holds you accountable. You better make sure you read. I really like that, because I just finished my MBA, and the professors that challenge me educationally or intellectually, those are the ones that I still go to now.
Well, and it's just like athletics. Yeah. We love those coaches. They got on us, but they made us better.
Yes.
And it's tough going through it when the coach is yelling at you, Charles, what are you doing? You got to get to this spot, but you realize it's only to make you better. And that's all I want to do with young people, is give them a chance, because we have 1,300 majors in our program. There are 423 of these programs around the country. Yeah. So if you put a job out for the Charlotte Hornets, 600 people on average are going to apply. What can you do to separate yourself? You need somebody like me saying, class starts at 8:05. You can't come in here at 8:09, 8:10. And so I have systems in place. Okay, we're going to reward the people who are here by 8:05. you take your chances if you get here.
So you like Don Shula in the classroom, Vince Lombardi,
hey, yeah,
Eddie Robinson.
It's real, man. It's real.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I tell students I'm the grapefruit professor, right? Yeah. When you first taste grapefruit, it's like, man, this is bitter.
That's true.
But then you realize I didn't get as many colds this year because I was eating grapefruit. So hopefully on the other side, they'll say, man, he was good for me. Yeah. You know, he was kind of bitter. It was tough to take, but I'm better because I had Professor Jeralds.
I don't know about you, but I'm always amazed to hear I was the first one in my family to finish college. I didn't see that. I had a mom and a dad who went to college. I had aunts, and it was around me. But I still hear that to this day. I do a showcase. We had to put it on pause, but we're going to start it again for those unsigned seniors. All those guys thinking they're getting to the big leagues, Division I. They end up coming out for a one-day showcase for Division II, Division III, and an AIA school. Right. Because I want to get them to school. Yes. I want them to have educational equity. How do we continue to help our young people, people of color that look like us, understand the importance of this? Because I made it to the league, you made it to a high level, but not many people get that chance.
Yeah, and education is the passport to the future, you know, and that's what we just got to keep emphasizing. It's tough, and I have a role at the university. In my college, I'm the assistant dean for diversity and inclusion as well, and I see that we hear that a lot, first generation students, and it's so gratifying when we see them actually get there. But we got to make it a welcoming environment. We got to give them the resources they need. And one thing I would encourage young people, use those resources. You know, I'm amazed at how many of my students will ask me, Professor Jeralds, can you look at my resume? And one of the first things I say, well, have you been to career services?
Yes.
They look at resumes
That's
all
what they
day.
do.
They know how a resume is supposed to look. So you're paying a lot of money, or you have a scholarship which allows you to utilize these resources. But, you know, one of the quotes on the back of my book is, the man who can't read has no advantage over the man who doesn't read. You know what I mean? And so if you don't take advantage of these opportunities that are available to you, then you've really done yourself a disservice. You've done no better than the cat that's back, you know, in the hometown said, man, you lucky, you got a scholarship. But if you don't maximize that opportunity, then you've really done yourself a disservice when God has given you the talent to be at a place and play and participate in a game you love, you know. Well,
we always do something on the show to kind of end it. We call it the 2-minute drill. So yeah, just the first thing that comes to mind. And you know, you just and it's rapid fire. In our vernacular in football, we want to score in the 2-minute warning, the 2-minute drill, as you know. So we make it easy, but it's fun as well. So when you think about food, steak or fish?
Fish.
Oh, okay. Any particular kind? I know you're Fayetteville isn't on the coast, but you can get to the coast from there.
Probably salmon prepared the right way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why you stay healthy.
Yeah. Right. You sound like my grandmother. You losing weight, son?
Top 3 events that you saw of all time at the Coliseum.
Wow. That game I mentioned when Alonzo hit that shot at the end of the game when we knocked the Celtics out of the championship. Definitely, you know, we had the men's and women's Final Four. Okay. I'm a Catholic though. Mother Teresa came to the building and spoke at the Charlotte Coliseum, and I got a chance to actually touch Mother Teresa. Wow. So I can lay claim to say I have touched a saint in my life. So that's definitely one of the highlights.
I grew up as an altar boy, so
there you go. There you go.
Yeah, so you know that's like next level.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was everybody that I've heard that ever has been even in her presence says she was just so
just so humble, so she was frail at that point, you know, but just such a small lady with such a huge impact in this world, you know. And she just spoke for a few minutes that day. We had maybe about 8,000 or 10,000 people there, but she said, just, you know, do stuff with love. You know, she counseled lepers, you know, don't be afraid to touch people, even though they have some sort of disease or whatever. So yeah, that had a big impact on me.
Well, we're marching down the field. That's a great one. I don't know how we could even top that. But the one question, when I first moved here, you'll be able to answer because you live in both places. what's hotter, Columbia, South Carolina, or Fayetteville, North Carolina? Because they both are two of the hottest places, and I'm from Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I had that conversation with a guy from Houston the other day. Probably Columbia, as I remember it, probably Columbia. And I kind of keep, my mom still lives in Fayetteville.
Okay.
So I have Columbia and Fayetteville on my weather, along with Charlotte. But I can tell you, Charlotte is always 5 to 6 degrees cooler than Columbia. So I would say Columbia.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, we Sporty, it's been great having you, man.
Absolutely, man.
You scored with that one because I was going to say Columbia. I was there one day. It said 100, and then my thing said it felt like 110. We got to do it again, man. This is great. I love
Thank you so much
talking
for the
about
opportunity, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin and I have been trying to get together with you, and we're going to do it again. Thanks for coming on Chopping It Up with Bob.
Yes, sir. Good to be here.